Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So here we are, back at the beginning, Genesis 1:1, creation, the Spirit of God hovering over the waters, separations, divisions, higher, lower, Adam, the quintessential earthling, a being made from Adamah, the earth itself. And then there's Eve, Chava, the life force of the universe. Choices, seductions, disappointments, fratricide, no turning back, evil and good, angels, confusion, dreams, and all that's just in the first several chapters of Genesis, just the beginning. Some of our greatest modern commentators share their awe at what we are about to explore. Yeshayahu Leibowitz saw in the opening verses of Breshit a consideration of the beginnings of time. How did reality come into existence? How did it begin? Leibowitz celebrates the willingness of Genesis to see that God is not of this world. God is not in this world. God is beyond, other than this world. According to Leibowitz, God does not exist for us. God exists, period. For Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, God is found less in some rather esoteric efforts to comprehend the mysteries of the cosmos and much more in actually wrestling with the words of the text. Sacks sees the Torah, written and oral, as a record of our conversations with those ancient words. That's what Jews do. Interesting. Living Jewishly for Lord Sacks is all about continuing conversations with the Torah text. For Aviva Zornberg, Adamah, the earthling, representing all of humanity, is created at the intersection of earthly dust and infinite space, of singularity and infinity, of frustrating limitation, and of a freedom that appears to be limitless, but quite realistically is not limitless at all. What does that mean for me, she asks. What does it mean for us right now? Breshit for me is not a textbook filled with arcane cosmological data. Breshit is not a textbook of biological science spelling out in great objective detail how it is that we came to be. Breshit is not, in the words of Levinas, a narrative filled with pieces of information about God's life. Rather, Genesis struggles to comprehend what all that we can actually know about the nature of life can possibly mean in and for our own lives. Now, Torah study has different purposes for different people. We can grant that. Some will use Torah study to obtain predetermined explanations as to what was really going on in the Garden of Eden. Who was that serpent? Satan? Evil inclination? We got to figure that out. And why was God calling out to Adam and Eve, Ayeka, where are you? Didn't God know where they were? Let's drill down into that question. Or was the Eve who was created in chapter 1 of Genesis really Lilith, and the actual Eve was the one, subservient one, created in chapter 2? There's no harm in doing Torah study that way. It actually can be fun. But others of us will encounter the Torah text differently. We want to know, for example, what was really meant by the word neighbor in that powerful moral imperative, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. We say it all the time. What did the author of that verse intend? Who was the neighbor? The answer might not be what we expect. And who are the gerim, the strangers, whom we are to love and embrace as our own? Were the gerim just anybody else who wasn't us? Maybe not. We want to know, here's a hard one, what the phrase Breshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz translated. In the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. Leave that as the translation. That sentence isn't grammatically decipherable. What did the author really mean when he wrote that sentence? And while we're trying to figure out what authors really meant and what about incomprehensible sentences, try Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Yeah, it comes later. But incomprehensible. It doesn't make linguistic sense. What did the author really mean when he wrote that? Now that's worthy of study. For some, Torah study is an endless cycle. We roll our Torah scrolls all the way back from the death of Moses to the creation of our world. We carefully flip our Chumashim back from the final page to the opening page. For such people who view Torah study as an ongoing cycle, Torah study is static, unchanging, and unchangeable. But that's now not how it is for me. When I take a quick look in the mirror, and that's all I can tolerate is a quick look, I have to admit that whoever it was that stared back at me last year has changed. My me isn't the same me anymore. Think about the events that have impacted us over the past 12 months. The successes, the celebrations, the achievements, new understandings about things, the joy, the love, the growth, and also the failures, the mourning, the confusion about things that are really so very meaningful, the pain, the despair, the limitations thrust upon our unwilling selves. Our me, the me that we bring to Torah study, really isn't the same me that began the study of Genesis last year. So we need to ask, can we really read the text, in exactly the same way if we no longer are the exact same people? The words don't change. The letters painstakingly scratched onto parchment with quill and ink by a sofer are exactly the same as they always have been. They only look different to us because we are different. They only feel different to us because we are different. We are reading familiar texts, and yet, my friends, we are meeting those texts for the very first time. Much of what I had previously accepted about who I am in a relationship with the world around me, I no longer hold to be valid. The same is true for me as I begin the cycle of Torah study again with you. I have changed. My truths have changed. My needs have changed. So my study of Torah this year is going to be a very different experience for me, for us. I will keep needing new teachers, new ideas, new ways of thinking. When we read the Genesis stories, Zornberg suggests, we would do well to read them primarily as stories of the dawning of human moral awareness. Read Genesis as the birth of moral consciousness. I want to understand this challenging concern. It's more important to me than to try to figure out whether Abraham was actually an historic figure. The Sfat Emet asks us to read Genesis as a divine call for us to detach ourselves from the rest of creation, to will ourselves into a psychological awareness of who we are in relationship to everything else that exists. For Sfat Emet, in a world that emerges out of tohu vavohu, out of chaos, emptiness, and void, Sfat Emet wants us to answer, where will we choose to stand as moral beings? Interesting. Zornberg, Sfat Emet, others. The book of Genesis is about our moral origins. That's what we need to be studying. I want to grapple with this with you. Leibowitz wants us to focus on the implications of the word created. And by doing so, to push aside our hubris, our pride, our conviction that everything in this universe exists for our pleasure. It doesn't. He asks that we stop worrying so much about what happened on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 of creation, but rather, let's accept the fact that we human beings are not the crowning purpose of creation after all. We are no more and no less than a tiny part of that creation. So again, same question. Where will we choose to stand? My newly emergent self, this year's self, wants to drill down into that question. Heinrich Heine beautifully described Torah as the portable homeland of the Jews. I love that. The portable homeland of the Jews. Lord Sachs celebrates those of us, you and me, who on a weekly basis begin with new eyes and with new needs. A conversation with Torah that's only been going on for about 2,500 years. So welcome to Shabbat. Welcome to the new us. Welcome to a renewal of our search for meaning. Welcome to a conversation that will never end. Shabbat Shalom.